When I was in grade school, maybe 8 years old, 10 years old, I was a horrible student. And I remember sitting, and I grew up in Detroit, and I was in a school, it's called Dort Elementary. By the way, Eminem and I went to the same elementary school. I was there about 15 years before he got there, but same school. But I used to sit in class, and I couldn't stand listening to my teacher talk or paying attention to the class. And I used to stare out the window, and in my mind, I would imagine that I was on a ship, and that this is my imagination. I would drift off, and I would imagine that I was sailing around the world. I loved history. I loved history. I loved geography. Everything else I couldn't stand. So I've always had a fascination with other cultures. Like when we would, in history, we'd learn about, Marco Polo and the salt trade and the spice trade and how, Europe and evolved and the trade between India and Europe and all that. And I was like, man, it's fascinating. I was always fascinated with other cultures. Okay, now fast forward to 1995. I had already been introduced and done business with Muhammad Ali. I had a superficial relationship with him and mostly with his wife. His wife, Lonnie, was the one that communicated for Muhammad Ali when it came to business opportunities. And she was like his manager. And I got a phone call from Antonio Inoki. Antonio Inoki at the time was the head of New Japan Pro Wrestling. He was also a very active political figure in Japan at the time. He was a member of what was called the Japanese Diet, which is similar to, in the U.S., similar to a senator. I don't know what the equivalent would be in Ireland or in the U.K., but Antonio Inoki wanted to have what he referred to as a peace festival because Antonio Inoki was running for office again, and he on a platform that he could broker a better business and peace relationship with North Korea because he had a connection to North Korea in the form of a professional wrestler by the name of Ricky Dozan. Ricky Dozan was a North Korean professional wrestler that had trained Antonio Inoki. So Antonio Inoki was kind of a legend in North Korea, even though North Korea was very, very isolated. One of the few people that North Koreans knew was Antonio Inoki because of his relationship with Ricky Dozan, who at one point in the 50s and the 60s was a hero, national hero. Okay, just said I'd fast forward. Sorry. So I get a phone call from Antonio Inoki, and he said, Eric, do you think you could get Muhammad Ali to come over to North Korea to be a part of a peace festival? Inoki's idea was to have a peace festival in North Korea as a way of bridging the cultural gap. So Antonio Inoki wanted to have a professional wrestling show where it would be New Japan, the number one wrestling company in Japan, against WCW, at the time, the number one wrestling company in the U.S. Close to it. Probably not at that point, but close to it. And he wanted to know if I could bring Muhammad Ali. So I got a hold of Muhammad and immediately agreed to it because Muhammad Ali was there's nobody I admire more, by the way, than Muhammad Ali. He is my hero. And he had such a big vision. And he was excited to be able to go over and speak to a culture of people that he didn't think even knew who he was. They did. Anyway, in my mind, I'm thinking, wait a minute, this is North Korea. We're not even allowed as Americans to go there. They're on the do not go there list. As an American citizen, it was illegal for me to even go to North Korea. The only way I could get there is if I went to Japan first and then through Japan went to North Korea. And that's what we arranged. So I got together a group of wrestlers and I said, look, here's the deal. We're going to Pyongyang. We're going to go wrestle in Tokyo for a couple of nights. And everybody loved doing that because Japan is fun. And then we're going to go to Pyongyang, North Korea. And half the crew went, where's that? The other half went, fuck you. I'm not going there. But I thought, what a great experience. What an opportunity to immerse yourself in a culture that is so entirely different than your culture. And I firmly believe, as I'm sitting here tonight, that makes the world a better place. You know, if we all live in our own little bubble and we only believe what we believe, or we only experience what we experience, what leads you to believe what you believe, you're pretty isolated. And I've always thought that way from the time I was a little kid sitting in the schoolroom looking out the window, imagining being on a ship sailing around the world. So I said, yeah, I'll do that. I didn't ask Harvey Schiller, my boss. I didn't tell anybody at Turner Broadcasting. I didn't ask for permission because Ric Flair told me one time, don't ever ask for permission, kid. Beg for forgiveness. Because if you ask for permission, they're going to tell you no. Just beg for forgiveness after you do it. Hopefully it'll work out. I went, yeah, that'll work. So I went there, and it's one of the things I am to this day most proud of. It had the most impact on me. I got to know Muhammad Ali on a level that I would have never, ever imagined I would get to I mean, we became friends. I got to experience a culture that is so unbelievably different than anything anybody in this room, unless you're from North Korea, has ever experienced. And I'm proud of that. Took some balls to do that one.